Hi, my name is Daniel Stepanian, and I'm going to be presenting a couple articles about improving working memory. The first article comes from Holmes and colleagues, and is it's so working memory is a predictor for success in areas such as language comprehension, problem solving, and learning. Although there is a cognitive limit to working memory capacity, our capacity to store and process information can be diminished by situational factors like sleep deprivation, cognitive fatigue, or stress, or improved through cognitive training. And they were asking, can working memory be enhanced immediately? Um, Well, Western cultures tend to have individuals with fixed mindsets, which is something that they were talking about, as we assume traits like intelligence are fixed to each individual and aren't able to be changed. Thus, difficult tasks may generate thoughts about incompetence. This can tax working memory and result in poor performance. Their hypothesis was that changing the way people appraise their experience in a testing situation through reframing difficulty during a task as a normal outcome of learning prevents taxing of working memory through intrusive thoughts and thus improves working memory performance. So onto the methods. They the participant were sixth graders, 111 of them of varying social economic statuses and genders. They had three groups: difficulty with reframing, difficulty without reframing, and standard or control. So for the two difficulty with or without reframing, before they completed a listening span test, they completed a three series of two difficult anagrams. And these were difficult enough to where they failed all of these anagrams. In the difficulty with reframing condition, the experimenter oriented children's interpretation of difficulty. For each series, the participants were told that experiencing processing difficulty was normal and only a reflection that learning was occurring. And this was not told to them in the difficulty without reframing. And in the controlled condition, there was no anagrams at all. They just went straight to the listening span task. And in this listening span task, participants listened to several series of sentences. For each sentence, they had to indicate as quickly and accurately as possible by pressing a key whether the sentence they heard made sense or not, and to memorize the last word of the sentence. At the end of a series of sentences, the children were asked to recall out loud as many of the last words as possible in order. And these can range from either two sentences all the way up to five sentences. The independent variable was whether the child's mindset was reframed by the experimenter. Um, and the dependent variable was performance on the listening span task in the form of proportion of words recalled. Onto the results, they scored. The scores were analyzed using a 3x2 ANOVA test. By this, I mean three groups by two either high or low cognitive demand in terms of the sentence number. So 4 to 5 sentences would be high cognitive demand, and 2 to 3 would be low. Children in difficulty with reframing group scored significantly higher, as we can see in these black bars, than in the other two groups. On the x-axis, we have cognitive demand, and on the y-axis, we have proportion of words recalled, which is a measure of working memory span. And this effect was even more pronounced when cognitive demand was higher. So as we go right on this x-axis, the difference between the difficulty with reframing and the other two groups was more significant. and children's academic level, gender, and social economic status had no effects. So what does this all mean? They found that working memory can be improved in less than 10 minutes by an intervention designed to change the metacognitive interpretation of difficulty. So just by 10 minutes after the anagrams of them explaining that the difficulty was a part of learning and to try to change their fixed mindset, it helped their performance in working memory. Thus, the hypothesis that changing the way people appraise their experience in a testing situation through reframing difficulty improves working memory performance is supported. Okay, on to the next article. This is by Nevo and Bresnitz, and they were initially speaking about how working memory is crucial for learning, including reading, and that there are 4 components to working memory: central executive, phonological loop, visual spatial sketchpad, and episodic buffer. And they were wondering, can combining training of working memory, cognitive training, and reading accelerated program improve reading level and working memory? Their hypothesis was that combining a reading accelerated program and a working memory cognitive program will improve reading skills and working memory abilities. So they had 97 children from 4 third-grade classes in a socioeconomic status Israeli town. Prior to the trainings, all the children were tested for IQ, the Raven Matrix test, and they were also tested for working memory and reading comprehension. The children then trained with the working memory program and or the reading accelerated program. Both are computer-based training programs. So I mentioned that there were 4 third-grade classes. They were split up into 4 groups. The first started with the reading accelerated program for 12 weeks and continued that for 12 weeks. The second group began with the RAP, but they switched after 12 sessions to WMP, or working memory program. The third was vice versa. They started with working memory program, and after 12 weeks, they switched to RAP, and the control was no training at all. So like I mentioned, each of these programs was 12 training sessions of 24 minutes each. They practiced different tasks related to working memory for the working memory program, such as DigiSpan task, block matrix task, reverse DigiSpan task, and reverse block matrix task. And in the RAP program, they trained decoding, fluency, and comprehension at the level of words, sentences, and paragraphs. After the completion of the training, the children were tested for IQ, working memory, and reading ability again. The independent variable in this case was the training program that they were on, and the dependent variable was the performance on the subsequent tests. The results, the training had a significant effect on reading measures in all working memory measures except visual spatial short-term memory. All 3 training groups showed significant improvements over the control in phonological short-term memory and visual spatial complex memory, which are components of working memory. The RIP plus RIP group showed significant improvements in phonological complex memory over the untrained group. And that group also showed significant improvements on an episodic buffer measure over RAP plus WMP, WMP plus RAP, and the control. So what did they find? They found that subjects in all 3 training groups significantly improved most of their working memory abilities over the control group. And the groups that combined these 2 trainings seemed to have the most benefits, although these effects were less subtle. Or more subtle, excuse me. The hypothesis then that combining a reading accelerated program and a working memory program will improve reading skills and working memory abilities was supported. Thank you.